and welcome to Candidates Corner on LPTV, Libertarian Party Television, a production of the Libertarian Party and Libertarian National Committee. Whitney Bilyeu serving as chair. As always, tonight, John Gapso is on the big board giving us the infotainment, the graphics, the pictures, the often, shall we say, gerrymandered districts. All of that to give you an insight into the challenges each of our candidates is facing. I'm your host, Pat Ford, and it is a profound honor to spend time with you every week and to meet so many of our wonderful, as we call them, down ballot candidates. As always, we open up every show with just a quick discussion of why we're here. Yes, we want to give the entire libertarian community nationally an opportunity to meet our down ballot candidates. It was interesting. I shared a show a few weeks ago, and I tend to share these. You folks have seen them. I put them out aggressively because I want to amplify the message as much as possible. And so someone questioned me and they said, well, this has nothing to do with that particular state that I shared it to. And again, it's critically important that we as a national party, a movement of philosophy, understand that candidates, in this case, running for alderman of a community in New York, running for the state house of the great state of New York, the folks we're going to meet tonight, are just as important to, shall we say, the Maine or the Vermont or the California or the Oregon or Washington libertarian movements as they are to the folks in New York State, the Empire State. Why? Proof of concept. Very often, libertarians are confronted with the notion, well, you haven't governed before. You know nothing. You've got these Pollyannish, you've got these overly optimistic ideas that'll never work. Well, you know what? They're working. They're working in communities in California. They're working in communities in New York. They're working in communities, of course, in Minnesota. They're working in communities in Florida, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. Libertarians are getting elected around the nation. And very interesting is to note that it's very often the sort of nuts and bolts positions of candidates we meet here today. And it's town council people, aldermen, town auditors. You name the position, town clerks in Illinois. You name the position, libertarians are starting to fill them. And they're able to, through their daily work on behalf of their community. We don't use the word governing here. We like the word stewardship. In their daily stewardship of the efforts for their community, they are literally proof of concept that break glass, add a libertarian to a failing government, to a philosophically, morally, ethically bankrupt government, and inject stewards in a community who believe in the rights of the individual. They believe in body autonomy. They live and breathe the notion of supporting the ultimate minority in this nation. And of course, the ultimate minority in this nation is the individual, regardless of ethnicity, regardless, if you will, of their gender status, regardless of their religion. That's what we do here. We celebrate and support the rights of the individual. And remind this nation that it's a nation of individuals. And while we can come together and work on behalf of solving problems and issues, that in respect for those individual rights is our nobility. And that's what we try to do here on this show. Create that bond, that recognition between communities around the nation. Give new candidates an opportunity to frame local issues through the perspective of the libertarian philosophy, the statement of principles, our platform, because they all matter to us. Folks often mention to me that they're shocked. You ask a libertarian candidate a question about an issue, the response is always immediate. Why? Because we have a platform that means something, because we believe in our philosophy, and our philosophy means something. Sounds simple, right? We know that the duopoly routinely goes through these death cycles where an individual party will dominate an election, particularly the presidential election, which seems to take up so much of the psyche of our news media. And the question will be, every 4 to 8 years, is the Republican Party dead? Is the Democratic Party dead? And inevitably, they will follow up, the news will follow up with the question, well, what are you going to stand for that will allow you to win? Think about that for a second. The American media routinely challenges our candidates to find a cause that will win for them as opposed to a cause that they actually believe in. And that conversation is held right in front of the American public. A few years back, the Republican Party was deemed dead on arrival. So they went and had a little retreat. And boy, had they retreated. What did they talk about? What issue should we get behind on so we can win? To that, of course, here on Candidates Corner LBTV, we say balderdash. Now, we've got two folks joining us tonight. Thomas Creeder is going to open up the show with a special announcement. We're going to talk to him for a few minutes. And joining us after that, since this is an Empire State kind of night, is Juan Ayala. And he is running for Middletown 4th Ward Alderman. But Thomas, you are a repeat offender on this show. You've been on a couple of times. You ran a hella campaign just a year or so ago. What's up? What's new in your life? How are you doing? And who's with you?
Well, I'm doing well. Good, bad, ugly, and libertarian, right? So that last word, libertarian, means I'm doing well. I've been campaigning one way or another, or getting prepared to campaign since November 4th. The election was on the 3rd. Yeah, she's nodding, right? This is Brianna Coyle. She's been with me since the last campaign, and she can tell you, yes, Tom's been working since the 4th.
Unfortunately, yeah.
That's outstanding.
Campaign never ended.
Correct. I like to say the road to liberty goes on forever, and this party's never going to die.
You brought up a critical point in campaigning. I have met a number of folks who've run for office in their first shot. Very often, regardless of whether you're a libertarian, a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, an anarchist, working people, regardless of your political affiliation, very often that first time out is a loss. And it's tough because many of us enter the field of battle thinking we're going to win this. And part of that is continually psyching ourselves up day after day after day after day after day to go out there and engage. And let me tell you, I watched your election last time, your election campaign, and I watched your efforts, and you are a warrior. You are an absolute warrior. And the energy that you and your team put into your campaign, I know Larry Sharp, Brianna, a whole bunch of people were involved, in addition to your efforts, are a model for how to run a first-time out campaign by an independent grassroots effort. It was just, I keep calling you a warrior, but that's it. And I'm not talking about some of the issues, in terms of, a personal issue, in terms of physical that you overcame. That is clearly amazing. But at the same time, your desire to keep campaigning, the model for everyone who loses their first time out and decides they're going to give it another shot. You really can't take the foot off the pedal, can you?
No, I mean, there really is no quit and quitter. If I were a quitter, I wouldn't be here. A lot of people have heard this story before. I was born and diagnosed with a severe disability, and the diagnosis was, it came with a death sentence, a 1-day life expectancy, and then a 2-day life expectancy, and then a week, and then 2 weeks, and then a month, and 2 months, and then a matter of years. And the last one they gave me was 21 years old. I turned 38 this summer. I learned how to not quit a long time ago. And if you want to make any headway in life, no matter how hard the struggle is, all you have to do is keep going. One thing I like to quote my father for having said to me, when things are hard, when things get tough, when there's work to be done, you hold your head up and you put your shoulder forward and you take things one step at a time. And all that really matters is you don't stop trying. And when it comes to running for office, I think a lot of people jump into it. They might think it's going to be easier than it is. They might have their own ideals. They may think they're the next best thing since sliced bread. And ultimately, to run a campaign, to be a candidate, is to seek to be a representative of a district people. And so you can bring your ideas, you can bring your concepts, but ultimately you have to listen to what they need and you have to interact with them. sometimes you do have to change the conversation, change the direction, make sure it goes in a way that's more appropriate. But you're not going to do that just by telling people how it is. You have to interact with them. You have to have those conversations. And if you're a candidate, you need to be fortunate enough to have people like Brianna here to help you learn how to communicate properly throughout the process. That's something I learned a lot from last year. And I think it shows in the numbers that I got. I mean, I took over 13,000 votes, over 12% of the vote, the best performing single line libertarian in New York State. And why would I not do it again? I actually ran on the slogan that I wouldn't quit, and that there's no quit and quitting. Mm-hmm. If I'm going to live up to the life I've already lived before I got into politics, that's how I have to be. I have to keep going. And it's interesting because, you know, they are redistricting this year, and the two proposed maps I've seen are huge. Brianna can attest to that. She's the one that found them. But so they're giving me a harder challenge.
It's going to be fun.
Exactly.
So you've got an announcement to make.
Yes.
Give us the official announcement. I know that you've got a big event coming up tomorrow, and I want to give you a moment to make sure I give you time to promote that, and whatever other events you've got coming up. But give us the official announcement.
Well, the official announcement officially happened by accident months ago when I contacted the press to tell them that I was considering to run for state senate again. And of course, the one TV station that likes me came out, did an interview right on my front porch, and listed it as an announcement. So let's make the official announcement. I am running for state senate in whatever district they decide to name it that I end up living in, because they're redistricting and gerrymandering, and I don't care whatever one I'm living in, that's the one I'm going to run for, and that's what I have to do. I mean, I'm here on principle, and I'm here to represent, and that's what you have to do. You have to just keep running.
So it's official. You're throwing your hat in. This is crazy, though, when you think about it. You've got to gear up for an election that you're not sure when do they predict that you'll actually have the where you're going to run?
So it's predicted to be settled by sometime in January. Mm-hmm. But I have a good eye on what's going on. And so there's a reasonable area that I can pay attention to now, that I can be relatively assured will be in district. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm sticking close to home. I'm sticking to the areas I know that I had good luck in. And I'm sticking to the areas that have bigger events. Tomorrow, we're having the campaign launch party, just a handful of close people. Tomorrow at 6 p.m. at Judy's Corner Kitchen right here in my hometown of Mount Upton. Then Monday, I'm doing a couple of events, one in Cortland and one in Otsego with Larry Sharp. Then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we're doing Speedy Fest in Broome County. That's a big food and hot air balloon festival that's been popular for some time. I think they're 30-some years into doing this. Shelley is right. Larry and I work very well together. It's good to see you again, Shelley.
I had the opportunity to chat with Larry a couple of times last weekend. Larry is back out on the road as if he ever stopped. There was a dinner in New Rochelle. It was very well attended. Great. A lot of frank conversation, a lot of best practice, a lot of advice. When it comes to speechifying, as we call it here on Kennedy's Corner, Larry is amongst the very best. Then on Sunday, Larry was good enough to give a speech to folks at a special event sponsored by, if you will, a group that involves the Libertarian Party of Connecticut. We were in Meriden, Connecticut. Spectacular event, spectacular day. Hundreds of people turned out for 3 or 4 rock and roll bands. I hear that rock and roll thing is going to stick. But it was a Liberty rock and roll concert with a variety of groups that the Connecticut Libertarian Party had formed coalitions with in supporting their opposition to medical mandates and mandatory masking and in a number of the outrages that have come across with the king, as they call their governor. And again, amazing event. So, and let's just see, there was a cross section, if you will, of New York libertarian royalty there, including your chair, Cody Anderson, and as well as a number of members. So it was great to see. There's, despite a challenging year, there's a lot of positivity out there. You've got a campaign organization already set up. You're accepting donations?
Yes, I am. You can go to tomfor52.com, TOMFOR52.com, created by this one right here.
I just want to add, we raised about $40,000 last campaign. We can do way better this time. To be competitive, we need to get hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if you can, please donate whatever you can. Please share, volunteer. We accept remote volunteers. Whatever you can to get Tom the win, the big W.
And I suspect it's going to be easier this time because everybody's going to be coming at these new districts without true incumbenthood, right? Even if someone has held the office before, their districts are going to look different, and they're going to have to re-campaign to new people. And I think that levels the playing field a bit, personally.
Well, and at some levels, they're actually going to have to campaign for the first time, too. There's a lot of folks sitting on their keister, if you will, who in states like New York, which just have this, I have this mental image, by the way, that when the New York State Legislature gets together, it bears a distinct physical similarity as well as attitudinal to, of course, the Senate scenes in a variety of the later Star Wars movie. You know, endless columns of rather dubious and sketchy looking individuals, all interested in simply one thing, their own personal fortunes as opposed to the citizenry. So, Tom, we just want a quick visit. Congratulations on continuing to campaign.
Can I make one more point?
Absolutely, please.
So, Brandon just pointed out that we raised nearly $40,000 last cycle, and I took 12.4% of the vote. Brandon, how much did my opponent raise and spend last cycle?
I believe it was over $1 million.
It was over half.
Wow. This is for a state Senate seat.
His donations might have been about $1 million.
Okay.
And the expenditure is over half.
Yeah, so he spent about $500,000 in a district where a win normally costs between $80 and $100 to beat my $37,000.
You got people power, baby. You got people power. You're the right person. You've got the right message at the right time, at a time when New York, if I won't sing it, but if I can paraphrase, of course, Simon and Garfunkel, where have you gone, Joe DiMaggio? New York cries its lonely eyes for you. You know, or what was that disco song, Brianna? I Need a Hero. That's the kind of stuff that's going on in people's heads in the Empire State. And, you know, when you look at the philosophical collapse of a failed nation state like New York, which is the size, the GDP, and the government size of entire nations.
It's going the way of most empires.
Right. And you, if I could quote one more commercial, what was that Shake and Bake commercial? I'll paraphrase, and you helped. So, again, first of all, Brianna, it's great to see you.
Same to you.
Let's make a shout out for Brianna Coyle. She is an activist par excellence. She lends her social media skills and her communication skills to candidates all over, well, everywhere.
And
not
she's
just
the campaign manager.
Right. So, you know, it's activists like Brianna are the heart and soul of this party because they do things. They don't just talk about it. They actually do.
Kind of flattered.
No, absolutely. I mean, you know, we need more Brianna Coyles. We've got a lot of folks in this movement who've got the talent and the skills, as you do. But we need more folks to take those talents and skills and face them outward, and not just, you know, it's unfortunately we've got in the Libertarian Party what I call Libertarian Game of Thrones, and we've got libertarians in many cases talking to other libertarians about libertarians so that we could discuss libertarianism. we need campaigns like the folks that you are involved in, where you're taking the message out to the normies, out to the real world, out to people who could vote for us, out to people who can get us elected, out to people who are looking for a future, out to people who are looking for some dignity in the government that they supposedly serve under. Yikes.
And then once we bring in the normies, then we can debate philosophy with them all day long. Isn't that great?
Absolutely. So again, much respect to both of you and the efforts in New York. There is an event coming up on November. I'll surely get the date. John will get it for me. On November 3rd, it's a Liberty Summit, I believe. It's going to be in.
That's the 5th, 6th, 7th.
5th, 6th, and 7th. Thank you. 3rd's the election, so it's the weekend or something like that. The 2nd, whatever. But the weekend after the election, we're all going to have, because there are some special elections. There are things going on this month, but we're all going to have a collective nervous breakdown. We're going to meet in Syracuse. We're going to party, but we're also going to concentrate on, a lot of the things we talk about on the show, and just how we can get geared up for, in both the Northeast and around the country, to get people geared up for the upcoming elections. So again, it's if you have a way to get to, you're anywhere in the East Coast and you can get to Syracuse that weekend, Mr. Durazio is running that event. It was just a Superior event in Pennsylvania as well. Individual states are picking up the ball and they're saying, okay, we're going to put together these weekends with great speakers, great people. There's going to be fun, but at the same time, a lot of focus. And that's the type of engagement that will really help to grow the libertarian philosophy in each of these states. So make sure you put on that. And by the way, since we're in housekeeping, before I get to Mr. Ayala, next week, and I can't tell you, I should know this, right? I can't tell you if there's still openings, but next week is in fact candidate training for Region 8. It's being held in Atlantic City. And please go to the lp.org website if you're still interested in that and haven't signed up. The training continues around the nation. Michelle, Cara, the entire crew. Steve Sheets is going to be at this one. He's running for senator, but he's going to be spending some time with candidates and people in training and teaching a class. It's going to be a special weekend. So if you don't have plans and you're anywhere in the area, please drop by. Folks, listen, thanks for joining us, you guys, and I know we'll be talking soon.
Thank you.
All right. That, of course, is Thomas Kueter. There's no quitter in Queter. He is running for as a yet ungerrymandered, unnamed district to be brought to you. And of course, I want to focus on the efforts of volunteers like Brianna Quayle, who just work really hard. There isn't there's an old saying in rugby, all guts, no glory. Those two represent a lot of passion for the movement. Let's all see if we can, in addition to some of the people that we've elevated and celebrated on this show in the past few months, let's see if we can add a little Brianna and a little Thomas to the recipe as well. Joining us next, and by the way, if you're just joining us, this is Candidates Corner on LPTV, Libertarian Party Television. We're doing a little different format. Joining us again was Thomas Kueter to make his announcement, but someone who's got a special election coming up. And I had the opportunity to meet at the Larry Sharp dinner last week in New Rochelle. I wanted to make sure we'd come on the show right away. He's got an election coming up, and we're talking about, of course, Juan Ayala. He is running to be the alderman for Ward 4 in, how do you pronounce it properly? Because I always mess up your town.
Middletown.
All right, so it's not Middleton, it's Middletown.
It's Middletown, yep.
Because all across this country, there are Middletowns and Middletons, and I'm not sure why. But first of all, listen, welcome to the show. Congratulations on your candidacy. I know you've been working at it very hard. The purpose of the show, as I mentioned in the run-up, is just a conversation where you and I just chat, really. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and when did you have your sort of libertarian moment? When did you really come to the notion that the Libertarian Party is a philosophy that you wanted to embrace?
I think I've been a libertarian for about 10 or 15 years now. I started reading books by Tom Sowell, and I started following personalities like Penn Teller, and other personalities like that. And I was a libertarian, but for the last 10 years, I was basically unregistered or marked myself as independent. And I ended up being that typical libertarian that voted for the lesser of two evils. In 2018, I was, I was so excited to see how well Larry Sharpe did for governor when he ran. And then I was actually excited to find out that we were officially on the ballot. And I changed my my registration to libertarian. And I was so giddy and happy about that. It was the first time I said, great, I'm not going to vote for the lesser two evils. I'm going to be a libertarian. I'm going to preach about it. I'm going to come out of the closet and just talk about it. And then, of course, in 2020, the Democrats changed the rules here in New York State to get us off the ballot, which sort of irked me a little bit more. And it came down to a choice where in the last couple of years, especially in my family, a lot of my family members and friends have moved out of the state. I mean, they're gone. My family's in Florida. Two of my top friends are now in North Carolina. And so I'm at a point now that, the state is failing. And, I've not really thought of myself as a politician. I was very happy with my IT career. I was happy going on the weekends and playing golf. I'm a big golf addict. And, I was so happy. But there's a point where the state of New York is failing. And either you have two choices, fight or flight. And I'm going to fight for it. And so as I started to investigate a little bit more about the what was going on in my own city, I was just sort of like disenchanted. Like there was no information. It just felt like, we were not being representative anymore. We were basically being told what to do and preached to. And that just sparked a fire. Then I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. And, I'm not very comfortable always knocking on someone's door, but man, I did it this summer. I got enough signatures to get on the ballot. I even spoke to Democrats and even convinced a few of them to sign my petition. So, this is a state where I think I can reach across party lines, both left or right, and get the libertarians out to say, hey, you need someone there to sort of remind everybody that we here, the government, to represent you and work for you, not the other way around. So this has been a very enlightening experience for me. I've gotten the opportunity to meet a lot of people. It's a very, challenging fight, but I'm just very excited. I mean, I got to even meet Larry Sharpe a few times and get some great advice from him. And that's the one thing I've also done too, is not just staying in my little pond. I've gone out to Putnam, Westchester, and meet other libertarians as well, because I just see it now. I see this is a great opportunity for us to stand up, because I feel a lot of people out there feel like no one is standing up for them or speaking up for them. And this is my opportunity to speak about what it is to be a libertarian and what it really means to, and what we can do to better serve you.
Excellent. Tell us about your town, your community. Were you born there, or you newly arrived?
No, actually, I was born in Jersey City. I came here. It's like a running joke I had with my mom. My mom came up here when I was 4 years old. And it was only supposed to be a temporary move because, she was a city girl. She didn't want to be up here in Middletown with all the cows. Well, that ended up being almost like 50 years later, we were still here in Middletown. So I came here when I was 4 years old. I've pretty much been here all my life. I graduated from Middletown High School, class of 88. I even graduated from the local community college here, SUNY Orange. I even worked locally for a big company here in Middletown. I have my roots here. It's a great little spot. I mean, I'm basically like an hour away from the city. I'm an hour away from some beautiful views and mountains and hiking and climbing and golf. It's a great place to live. But I've been noticing, especially in the last 10 years, all I've been seeing lately is basically less communication from the government. Our taxes are going up. The roads are not as in good shape where they were 20 to 30 years ago when I bought my house. So I just, we can do better. We're the most one of the most, I think we're the second or third highest tax state in the country. And it doesn't show, and that's because we have, unfortunately, especially in the city of Middletown, a one-party system, and there's no alternate voice speaking up for the other people. And I'm hoping, and I actually do think, some people, maybe some of my friends or family members will, well, you're running as a libertarian, give it a good go college try. I've actually had a friend tell me, like, I think you actually can win, because he's seeing how many people are helping me, how many people have reached out to me. I've managed to, for example, reach to a couple of organizations like Orange Strong, and they've been protesting the mandates. I've talked to nurses. I was at a rally in Port George, like 15 minutes from my town, and I spoke to a nurse for about half an hour, and she just emailed me yesterday that she lost her job at Gardner Health. So now this has become my new passion. It's someone who was very reluctant at first to do this. No, I'm now fired up to fight back, and I'm just sort of humbled by how many people are coming out to help me. I'm just an alderman, but for us to get anywhere, I really feel the libertarians have to start here at the local level first, then
Right.
county, then state.
Absolutely.
And then that's what we need to do. We need to start, and I want going forward to have a libertarian on the ballot. I that's why I go to Putnam or surrounding counties. I've had people tell me, why are you going to these counties or these meetings? I said, it's because this is a long-term fight. And I've been blessed that people have driven like an hour to come to my events and help me out and donate to my campaign. It's very humbling. I've always been sort of giddy about asking for money, but I realize they're not giving me money. They're giving me money because they're giving me money for my campaign. They want someone to stand up, because a lot of times, especially in the city of Middletown, the last, I think, 6 or 8 years, the aldermen have run unchallenged. The mayor has run unchallenged for, I think, even this year he's being run unchallenged. Not even a Republican's running against him. So we can't have that. We have to run. We have to speak up. We have to fight. We have to make them fear us a little bit. They and remind them they work for us, not the other way around.
Part of the fun of this show is really getting a sense of individual communities, and people who listen to the show somewhat frequently. I first of all, I appreciate that. We work hard to put together really informative conversations, and that Juan, quite frankly, is driving himself. But part of the fun is reading local newspapers. So of course, what came up with is, of course, the New York Times of the Hudson Valley, the Times Herald Record, or otherwise known as the Record Online. But local newspapers, particularly stronger ones, really can be reflective of what's going on in the community. Get a real sense. Local newspaper reporters are a proud bunch, and they beat the streets hard to find out what's going on. They talk about a gun and gang crisis, and there's a pretty wide range of towns in your area that are kind of reflected in this. I mean, I go talk about towns like as far south as Yonkers, Poughkeepsie, Middletown. I mean, we're talking a wide geographic range. But this article that talks about gangs next door is pretty provocative stuff. And I would encourage anyone to Google it or go to recordonline.com in depth. And they've got a great story. What is the state of the criminal justice system in the greater metropolitan Middletown area?
I will say okay. It's actually one of the things I was planning to do. Was actually meet up with the police chief, because I've actually had a friend who worked for a long time ago for the city of Middletown, and he was telling me that there was somewhat of a gang and crime issue, but it was not really being heavily reported. I've been hearing whispers about it. The only thing I've gotten feedback was from mostly with in the city of Middletown, from just walking the streets, was basically mostly car thefts and burglaries. So I know there are other areas of Orange County, like for example, the city of Newburgh, which are really, really bad with gang crime and stuff like that. So I don't think Middletown is in that ballpark. I've actually, based on some of the stats I've seen, it appears that the city is improving the crime stats, which is somewhat of a good news. But I've actually but that's one of the challenges, is trying to find information about getting decent information about the crime stats about here, and that's actually one of the priorities on my website I mentioned is about communication and trying to explain to people about how are we doing. Like, you need to give yourself a report. You have to say, hey, crime went up 10%, but these are the steps we're going to do to improve on it. I also want to make sure that, for example, as aldermen, that that we fund the police and also train them. We want the officers, for example, to focus on true crime. We don't like. I think a couple of months ago I was at the Common Council to debate the local law about cannabis and about allowing it in there. And there's things in the law where you could have a certain amount of cannabis on your possession. So I don't want. I think our chairperson even brought up, we don't want our officers breaking in or expecting houses to determine how many ounces they have. We want them to ensure that our private property is being protected, that people are safe to walk the streets. Those are the things we want them to focus on, and that they're also trained to protect people's civil liberties. We don't want no knock warrants and or have use of excessive force. Kind of thing. But that's where we are. That's one of the things. It's always been a sort of rubbing issues. I'm to the point where I'm actually planning to go to City Hall next week to get to hopefully speak to the police chief to get a little bit more understanding on it, because it's just the stats that are out there right now are very vague, and I want to get that a little bit more transparent.
Excellent. Schools. In Middletown, obviously there was life before COVID, life during what we'll call the intensity of COVID. Now we're in this sort of middling area of recovery, reassessment of how we approach education. How are schools funded in Middletown, and what are the state of them? And I guess just kind of getting a snapshot is our town alderman. And by the way, I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, that an alderman plays a role similar to what a town councilman would be. And
correct.
And what role does the town council play in local education? Or is there a school board that's separately elected, separately budgeted, and just hands the town council a bill once a year?
The
How
latter.
does it work there?
It's the latter. It's the latter. The board is the latter. Unfortunately, it's the latter. The school board, because but the good news is I just recently got in contact. Actually, they reached out to me and assigned me to their group. I haven't had the opportunity to meet them yet. It's Mom for Liberties. It's a group now fighting for parental rights to get a little bit more transparency into the school boards like this. There are a lot of things about the school boards that are, again, it's not something I would have control of, but I would definitely bring a mic to the issue or a spotlight to the issue, because there are parents who are concerned about what's being taught in schools, if CRT is being brought up. I think a couple of weeks ago, my opponent actually was actually commented on it and basically said that there's no reason for the parents to worry about. There's no CRT. We're teaching diversity, and only people who talk about this are racist. And I was a little offended by that, because as alderman, I said, okay, he may be right. Maybe that's not CRT being maybe, but I think as an alderman, you should encourage your parents to visit and be more active in their school board, and not to start labeling with names and stuff like that. I mean, that's something. It just shows like sort of a contempt for the public. Unfortunately, the Common Council a lot of times has that feeling. Sometimes I feel like they just have contempt sometimes. I mean, we a couple of months ago when all the libertarians showed up and helped me fight the local law number 1, it was not just libertarians. It was a full house. Now, generally these meetings last like 30 minutes. This meeting took 2.5 hours, and probably over 50 residents were telling the city, do not opt out. We would like to have cannabis dispensaries in our town. It would help have a safer product. It would help the elderly with the pain medications, and it fell on deaf ears. And the fact the mayor even said, who do you listen to? Like, he basically disregard them, listen to us. We know what's best for you. We're going to opt out. And it's It's that kind of attitude. The school boards, unfortunately, have a similar tone because they have forgotten who they work for. It's almost like, no, don't worry about it. We got it. Don't worry about it. That's all hearsay. No, don't worry about it. No. As alderman, Sparrow should have told the residents, well, regardless, because I don't know if it's CRT is being taught in Middletown High School's Middletown School District right now. But I would encourage all parents to get involved, find out what's being taught, find out who is being elected onto the school board. Maybe have school board elections that are not some weird time periods and dates, like maybe have it during, November 2nd. I think the elections here are off some weird date where no one pays attention to. And that's sort of intentional to sort of suppress the vote. Unfortunately, New York State is full of that. We have now, as you spoke to Thomas earlier, they're redrawing the lines. I live in a county that's fairly red, and almost every local and county official is Democrat because they draw these crazy lines all the way up and down the state to ensure that Democrats get voted in. And it's just suppressing vote. I actually honestly believe that. I honestly think it's, this gerrymandering is something that needs to be addressed. I don't know how much I could do as alderman yet, but I hopefully when Larry Sharp gets in there as governor, he'll address that.
Well, and you bring up an important point. As you build your political resume and you get elected and you actually, again, we use the word steward here. I know I kind of beat that to death, but what we're hoping to do is replace the word govern in the entire libertarian lexicon. But as you steward resources in the community, you will rise and you will have an opportunity to run for offices at the statewide level where you can participate in that. And you are exactly right. The failure to include political parties, well, across all political stripes, and I'm talking about working families, I'm talking about the conservative, I'm talking about the libertarians, the Greens. It is voter suppression. Mm-hmm. And I constantly take offense at these the duopoly leaders who virtue signal about how inclusive they are, while at the same time preventing alternative solutions in the form of competing parties to join the race. And someone objected to that recently. I disagree. Well, really? So if you allow someone to vote, but quite frankly, you'll prevent them from having a choice in voting, what's the damn difference? I'm old enough to remember Soviet workers' paradise in the USSR, where everybody voted, but you had one choice.
Yes.
And quite frankly, looking at the status of electoral politics, and I got a real update, if you will, from Larry's speech. Is Larry, we got in the weeds there for a roundtable dinner conversation with 30 or 40 people. We got in the weeds, and it was a great conversational. A lot of people, besides you, including yourself, weighed in, and that's New York. There's one choice, one size fits all, and yet, arguably, New York has one of the most diverse subsets of communities on the planet. I mean, even within the shouting distance of your newspaper, you've got communities like Fishkill and Newburgh, and then you got communities like Middletown. I mean, agrarian communities near inner cities. Mm-hmm. Wow. How does one size fit all, and how does one size adequately So we are engaging, all right, in voter suppression, and it's being done by the duopoly in different states. Some states it's the red, other states the blue. As Jerry Seinfeld says, we're all rooting for laundry, right? At this point.
Yes.
So let's then, of course, when you talk to voters, we've touched on criminal justice, we've talked on education, and we've touched a little bit on the Rona, on COVID. When you talk to voters, and what do they say? What's their biggest concern as they elaborate on it to you?
Well, yeah, the big things was basically just communications. They felt a lot of the. Actually, it's sort of funny. Just to backtrack a little bit, when I initially tried to get on the ballot, I tried to get on the ballot as a libertarian, but that's when we got kicked off. So I had to go back out and run and do an independent petition, which actually was a blessing in disguise. Because even though I had to get I think was it 9 times more signatures, and it took me close to 3 months to do that. It gave me the opportunity to talk to people, and they just feel like disenchanted. A lot of them are. They're disenchanted because they know a lot of times the alderman and the mayor runs unopposed. They feel like and actually that's sort of a little bit how I got into a little spark was the same reason too. A lot of them had similar stories with them writing emails to their alderman and not getting a response at all. In fact, I did the same thing too. That sort of was one of the steps that got me to run was for the 4th time in a year, they were ripping up my road, and I just wanted to know what's going on. Is there something I should know? And I never got a response. And I hear complaints about the sidewalks and about speeders, and people are noticing that they used to have police officers patrol the residential areas to get those speeders because a lot of people want to avoid the main routes, and and they're doing 65, 70 for these residential areas, and now they're not showing up. So it was that kind of thing. Like what's going on? Was it a budget cut? Are the police focusing their attention to? I'm not blaming them. I just want to know why. And it was a common theme. In fact, that's actually how I got a couple of the Democrats to vote. I got one of them to say, "Well, I think I'm going to vote. I'm a Democrat." Like I said, look, I'm a city resident. I'm doing this not for party. I'm doing this to represent you. I said, I'm not asking you to vote for me now. I'm just asking you to give everyone a choice, and then give me 4 months to change your mind. And she says, I like that. I like the attitude. And she's like, okay, I'll sign. And I was like, and that opened my eyes. And I wasn't, because initially you focus on maybe, and I sort of threw out the party label. I just knocked on everyone's door. I said, I'll knock on Democrat, Republicans, Green. And I found out that a lot of them were just very happy. A few of them asked me to run for mayor, but I said, baby steps first. So let me become alderman first. Let me see how that works out first. And I'm just, and it's doable. I mean, I think in the last election, the both aldermen for my ward run at the same time. It's the top 2 right now. This the top 2 out of 3. And I think the last time they only got like 250 to 300 votes. It's doable. And I had 100 people to sign my petition. So I feel like I'm like 1/3 there. And I already am getting a lot of response from my social media. People are helping me volunteer to help me put out signs. I actually really do feel I can win this race. I think, and I'm going to prove to them that their vote for me was the right vote, because I'm going to be there. I'm going to be accessible to the residents, and that's actually the key thing: being accessible to the residents and hear their complaints. You're there to represent them, and also I'm pretty sure if I get on the Common Council, then that I would be able to actually bring back debates, because most of the time the reason the meeting's only 30 minutes because they're saying aye, yes, oh mayor, glory mayor, we'll do whatever you want, yes. Like I've been to like a half a dozen of those and watched about 12 other boring meetings, and it's yep, whatever you want, mayor, no problem. It's like why don't we have a discussion? Why don't we listen to some of the residents? And maybe it would be, I think me being elected would be a little bit of an impact, because I think the other aldermen will start realizing that they have to respond to their constituents. They have to.
Just a tip, and this has worked out really well in our community. I wish I could claim credit for it. You talk about communication. I live in a little town called Cumberland, Rhode Island, unremarkable burg, and I'm being complimentary. But one of the things they do in their town meetings, very often communities will have public comment at the beginning of the meeting. And it's a powerful moment for a lot of folks, because it allows them to get issues off their chest. You don't have to, you just show up and start talking. Well, our town instituted a policy where they put public comment both at the beginning and the end of the meeting. And that accomplished 2 things. It sent a message to the community that we value your input. We want to hear from you. And quite frankly, for folks who, so many families now, there's a whole nother conversation to be had about this, where you've got 2 partners, or a single mom or a single dad, working 2 and 3 jobs just to get by. So quite frankly, they didn't really have an opportunity. They couldn't make a 7 o'clock public comment. They're putting their kids to bed. But one of them could sneak out if it's, if you're fortunate enough, if you have a sitter, one of them could certainly sneak out at 9 or 9:30 and get and be heard. And it's a simple gesture, but I tell you, it goes so far, because what you're saying is you've got a welcome sign open for business at the town council, or in your case, as town alderman, and it's a powerful signal for such a simple gesture. We only got a couple of minutes left, so let's talk about your campaign. How are you? It sounds like you got your listening ears on, is what I used to say when I was a kid, which is a great thing, because listening is a powerful tool. Even though anyone who's watched me on there knows I seem to just talk endlessly, but you're listening to her when you got signatures. What else are you doing in terms of the mechanics of campaigning?
Well, probably starting next week, I'm personally going to be going back out there and knocking on doors again, especially the people who already signed my petition. The other thing I'm also planning to do is I have a few volunteers already. I haven't confirmed the dates and times yet, but we're going to have like a door-to-door knocking events. We're probably going to do it twice. We're probably going to do it maybe next weekend, and then one maybe 2 weeks or right before early voting happens. I'm also sending out mailers. I'm also been, believe it or not, really focused on social media. I've been posting a lot on Facebook and Instagram, and I'm getting a lot of feedback for that. A little bit more surprising. So maybe instead of spending money on your signs, I've been posting more and more. I do plan to post more videos next week about what I mentioned earlier about. I've already been editing because since I am an IT professional, I'm pretty good with the websites that I did for them. I'm sorry, the website that I did, it was something I did my own. I didn't pay anyone else, so that helped out. Mm-hmm. And just really put the pedal to the metal. I mean, I'm also been getting a lot of supporters. For example, I already mentioned that I've been going to the rallies. I've actually been talking to a lot of different organizations, and they already have planned to come out and something like endorse for me. For example, one of the things I did was one of the organizations I was talking to was Orange Strong. I helped design a website for them. I did that in a couple of days. And then also when I was talking to different groups about the mandates, they were talking about sharing their information on Facebook, and they were already getting shadow banned. So probably took me a day and a half, and a lot of coffee, but I created a brand new website called sayno2mandates.com. So they can all now post their events on this website that I'm hosting personally, just to help them out. Because, I'm working on my campaign, but I'm taking time out to help them, and hopefully in the coming weeks, they're going to help me out too, knocking on some doors. Excellent.
How many votes do you need to win?
I'm shooting for 300 or 400. I'm just trying to get, I know, for example, the city of Middletown, if you look at the demographics, there are more Democrats than Republicans. I did get the endorsement of the city of Middletown Republican Committee last month, so I'm pretty happy about that. I had a long discussion about them, and we didn't agree on everything, but they figured, well, at least let's support Juan, and we agree with him 75% of the time. So let's do this. So I have their support. But what a lot of people don't realize is that when you account for people who are not registered or affiliated with any party, we're talking about registered voters who are not affiliated. We're talking unaffiliated, Green Party, SAM, Independents, Republicans, Conservative. They are now it's a 2-to-1 advantage on that side. So if I can get what I could refer to as sort of the disenfranchised voters that come out on November 2nd, I'll get elected.
Excellent. All right. So this is the part of the program we call, John, what do we call it? Shameless.
It's shameless self-promotion.
Right. So for the next couple of minutes, I want you to tell everyone exactly where to send money, how to volunteer, where they can find you on the web. Just as importantly, why it's critical that it's libertarians. And I see a great lineup of New York libertarians who have been weighing in throughout the entire show, including a lot of my friends, New York friends that I partied with last weekend. Why it's important to share this amongst the New York Libertarian Party, because not only is it a measure of support for you personally, but it shows what positivity can do and aggressive campaigning can do in righting the ship in the Empire State. So, want to have at it.
Great. Absolutely. Yes. Please go to juanfrommiddletown.com. There, if you click, there's a big red button on the website that says donate. I would appreciate any combination, even like if you just have $5, I would appreciate it. I will, in the next coming weeks, I will be setting out mailers, ordering new yard signs. I already ran out yard signs. I will be posting on Facebook and Instagram a lot more. We're less than 30 days. We're about 30 days away from the election.
Right.
And we're 3 weeks away from early voting. So, like I said, I will be having I'm going to try to have 2 door-to-door volunteer events. I need about 12 to 16 people because I'm hoping to grab like a couple of people to go each section of neighborhood. My ward is not that big. So if I can break it up my ward into like 8 zones and get 16 people and say, hey, here's zone 1, here's zone 2, we could probably knock all the doors in an hour or two, So, and I want to do that hopefully next week, and then again, and maybe a couple of days before the early election opens. So please go to juanfrommiddletown.com, click the contribute or donate button. Also, there's buttons there to sign up to volunteer. Please, that's working, and tell me when you're available to volunteer to come and knock the doors for me. Or if you want a yard sign, if you live in Middletown and you want to have my beautiful yard sign, that's pretty cool. I think it is, but it's black and gold, libertarian colors. It's also there to the requested there too.
Well, listen, Juan, congratulations on a great effort. Congratulations on having the skills to pay the bills, as we like to say here at this show. We always close out by acknowledging that running for electoral office, and there's so much work that's not being done. There's so many libertarians. We've spotlighted a couple earlier this evening, but running for political office, I believe, other than serving in our nation's defense, is perhaps the most patriotic thing you can do as an American. And I understand that libertarians were, and I'm very much amongst, are not fans of government, are not, perhaps the word patriotism sometimes is a challenge because of the seriousness with which, in the introspective nature of our philosophy. But the level of service that you engage in by simply acting as a candidate, you challenge issues, your existence in running a serious campaign, and this is true of all serious libertarian campaigns. In running a serious campaign, you force the existing leadership, if you will, of these communities to come to the table. You engage with them. Your work means that they have to face a high degree of accountability that would not exist. And by simply engaging, and it's nothing simple about it, right? But by engaging in a campaign, you give a relevance and importance to, again, our philosophy, our statement of principles, our platform, that wouldn't exist if you hadn't taken the time and made the personal sacrifices, the financial one, time from your family, time from your job, all of that. If you don't make those sacrifices in your community, then that power vacuum that you attested to, that you were so frustrated by, the lack of communication, the fact that people were running unopposed, all of that remains in place. Your sacrifices and the sacrifices of all libertarian candidates exhibit a nobility because of the degree of change that takes place because of your willingness to challenge the status quo. And that is so important to where we are in our history right now, both as a nation, our local communities, and quite frankly, the party. So much love, much success, much respect. And, I look forward to you and a couple of the other folks we had here on the show tonight to be a growing force within the movement, and as a result, your community. So God bless, lad.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And thank you for having me on the show.
Wonderful. Folks, you've been listening to Candidates Corner, a production of the Libertarian Party. and Libertarian National Committee. Whitney Bilyeu serving as chair. As always, it was John Gapso on the big board, putting up all the infotainment, the graphics. A special thanks tonight for all the folks who weighed in. The comments were great tonight. They were supportive. They were engaging. They asked great questions. A shout out to my friend, Mr. Donnelly, who I got to finally spend some quality time with after this past weekend. At what was it? I think it was Sylvia's. If you're in New Rochelle, just call us and ask. It's a special place where more than a few libertarian elbows were bent at a tavern after a successful dinner on behalf of Larry Sharp. Listen, folks, again, I keep telling you, it's hammer time. We've got some important off-year elections right now taking place in communities just like Middletown, New York, around the nation. You got a little bit of time. You got a little bit of extra do-re-mi to share with the candidates of your choice. Please do. If you're frustrated by some of the events that happen sometimes in the world of social media at the national level, engage with local campaigns. You can change the world of Middletown, New York by supporting one. A few bucks here, a few bucks there. We understand these are challenging times. They're difficult times. A little bit of sacrifice, give up that coffee, send them a few bucks. Spiritually, it's wonderful, if you will, for the attitude and the support of a candidate. And the money, well, listen, they don't call it the mother's milk of politics for no reason. Folks, we'll be back on the air potentially Monday night. We've got a couple of folks lined up. We'll be in touch over the weekend. But in Liberty, thanks for joining us tonight. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you soon.